So, first two videos I talked about how we can raise the oxytocin level in the environment. I also talked about actually then how to physically do the hand expressing. Obviously this, I've talked for a long time here, you don't have time to do all this at one sitting with the mum, which is why it's really important that, we try and do this frequently, going up through the information with the mums and liaising with the midwife that's looking after the mum so that, they can help us alongside what we're doing. So actually it's starting to make sense to the mums. But because we've got such a small amount of time to switch on those cells in the first couple of days, it's really important that we don't leave it for day 3 to start having these conversations, because by which time we've often missed the boat. It's about as soon as possible. I'm not going to say the first time that mum sees her baby that we start shoving a woolly boob into her face, but possibly the first time she sees her baby, have a conversation of it's something really positive that you can do for your baby, expressing. I'm not going to be asking you to breastfeed, but your tiny drops of your liquid gold or your breast milk makes such a massive difference to your baby. And if you could go back next time you go back, discuss it with your midwife, or next time you come down, I'll go through it with you. But we really need to make time for these mummies. If you are too busy yourself, then liaise with your colleagues around you, speak to the nurse in charge. We need to work as a team to really get this information to those mums early, because we know frequent early expressing makes such a difference to actually switching on a full supply or gaining a full supply. And actually our golden standard is that first expression should be done within an hour, 2 hours of delivery. Okay? There is a caveat to that if a mum's really poorly, and some of our mums are the poorest mums in the whole hospital, and as soon as the mum's well enough. But if a mum can be sitting up in bed eating tea and toast, then she's absolutely capable of doing a hand expression. And what I often say to the midwives is if the mum had a term baby with her, would you be expecting that mum to put that baby to the breast? And actually if the answer to that is yes, then actually that mum should be hand expressing. So we need to work, and I will be working very closely with my midwifery colleagues, but you yourselves can telephone, the midwife, liaise. If you've not heard from that mum all shift, or you've not heard from the midwife, then do liaise with the midwives in the postnatal wards or IACU to find out how mum is she expressing, so that we can work together on this and actually start that expressing a little bit earlier. On that score, then again, within those first 24 hours really, especially within the first day, it's really important that mums start to understand that we're talking about 8 to 10 expressions a day. It's very hard for mums to the concept of what you talk about 8 to 10 times a day. I'm tired, I'm in pain, I want to get some sleep. It's very hard, and you need to be really quite clear of actually what our expectations are, a little bit of how actually this is going to work. That they need to switch this on early, and the only way that that's going to happen is by getting a minimum of 8 expressions a day. Now, we need to say 8 to 10, but actually I'm very clear with mums that I say, I don't expect you to get 10 expressions in, but I need you to get 8 expressions in, and that's the way that we need to talk. Now, the other way that, again, if you leave a mum to her own devices, she might do 4 expressions, she might do 5 expressions. But one of the ways that you can really help a mum to understand how to fit in 8 expressions in a day and get some sleep is by filling in the logbook for her. Give her an example of how to fit in 8 expressions in a day. And start that time with 3 o'clock one. Yeah, so we're going to get the number 1 expression is the one in the middle of the night. So really be clear on actually that we do need you to express at night, because your hormone level is highest at night. And actually, by doing that one in the middle of the night, that puts the order in for the next day. And you've all heard me talk about the cavemen and women. Again, bringing a little bit of that into play, that actually in the caves there was more predators at night, so our hormone levels were higher at night, so our babies breastfed all night long. And then during the day we went off hunting and gathering. They had a little bit of milk, but the bulk of the feeding was done at night. A little bit of an explanation to that mum and actually she's going to understand why we're asking her when she's so tired and in so much pain to get up in the middle of the night and express. And that needs to continue for the rest of her expressing journey. That one in the middle of the night is a number one, and that puts the order in for the next day. So again, you know, I've got a little bit of a room around that. I say one between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning. So if she's needing a wee at 1 o'clock in the morning, she can get up, she can switch her alarm clock off, which she set for 3 o'clock, and go back to sleep. But by default, set an alarm clock for 3 o'clock in the morning, get up and express. And that's really going to set you up for the rest of your expressing journey. And I've got the next one starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. I've spaced them out 3 hourly from there, so I've got one at 7, I've got one at 10, I've got one at 1, and I've got one at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So again, I've spaced them out 3 hourly, but I want you to make it very, very clear to the mums that this is not about doing an expression every 3 hours. This is about fitting it around your day. This is purely an example. But we don't eat as human beings soup sandwich every 3 hours. So a baby doesn't feed like that. Babies feed hourly, 2 hourly, 3 hourly, but we don't tend to go more than 4 hours without at least something to drink, and a baby's exactly the same. So you know, if you've left your gap 4 hours, don't worry. Absolutely fine, but try not to leave your gap more than 4 hours if you can help it. But if you have, just do another one an hour later. Yeah, it's not about individual volumes, it's about the 24-hour volume. It's about getting that minimum 8 expressions on to switch on the supply and maintain supply. From 7 o'clock in the evening, I've got 7, 8:30, 10 o'clock in my example, and that's showing the mum about, talking to the mum about cluster expressing. And we're going to have a little conversation about how that's a really effective way of switching on actually more volume in the future, because when we express close together when our hormone levels at the lowest, which is tea time and early evening, it tells our body over the next 2 to 3 days that you need more milk. And it's a good way of getting 8 in, so we're getting 2 good chunks of sleep at night, but also in the future it's helping to produce our milk volume that we're needing. I do say to my mums, look, you know, if you can't cope with cluster expressing at this time, which is actually mimicking what a term baby would do, because a term baby cluster feeds at that time, and you can cluster at any point of the day. But it's quite useful if the mum does cluster, so she can have 2 good chunks of sleep at night. So again, point out this is purely an example. It's about fitting it around your day and your lifestyle, but we really need you to get 8. But I do find it really helpful for mums if you write down an example of what they need to do. It makes it so that they can see. Mums often tell me it's very helpful for us to do that to them. So then on that score, you know, I'm asking them, please document every expression you do, every drop, and the volume. Number of times I speak to mums and they're saying, how much are you getting in 24 hours, when I'm trying to assess if I can reduce the expressions that they're doing, and they haven't got a clue. They'll tell me, oh, it's around about 100 mils every time, which is brilliant, it sounds great, but I really need her to keep a daily tally of where she's at. We need to know that, she needs to know that. So again, you know, and I'm not going to tell this to this mum in the first 24 hours, 2 days, 3 days of where she is, because it becomes such an unattainable volume of milk in the future for them to aim for. But you know, later on they need to know that we're aiming for 750 to 900 mils of milk, and a lot of mums just express the volumes that their babies need, and they stick at that, and they think they're doing exceptionally well, which they are doing, and let's praise. I always praise anybody, even if they're just bringing me 2 drops of milk. But it's about a realistic expectation. If they're only expressing for 200, 300 mils of milk, and we're going to expect 700, then you know, we need to have that honest conversation early doors. Okay, so latterly on this score, they don't need to physically fill in a logbook for me. They could do an expressing app. There's lots of free expressing apps out there. Medela do a free expressing app. But diaries, whatever they want, that is just there, and it's got a pen inside the colostrum packs, so it's easy for them to start off, but it's whatever they want. But I do need on a daily basis for them to document down. Remember, advise them as well about the guidance of this, that's going to back up everything that we've said. What I do need you to fill in now is the expressing assessment forms. The expressing assessment form is absolutely vital, okay? We need to do this at least 4 times in the first 2 weeks. And as I said earlier, these mums, you know, you might have told them once, but they're not retaining this information. The reason we need to do it 4 times is to really make sure that they've grasped that knowledge and that they're expressing correctly. But this is also our protection, that we're demonstrating that we've given that mum good support, okay? So if you're giving a mum the information for the first time, then it's the yellow box that we tick. And if she's not actually doing it and you're doing future expression assessments, it's, you know, it's a yellow box. But if she's heard you talk about that before, or someone else talk about before, and she's doing everything correctly, you know, then it's a green tick. So, you know, it doesn't matter if we get to the 4th expression and we've still got lots of yellow, you know, boxes here. And that, you know, I get a lot of, oh, I've told her time and time again that she needs to do 8 expressions a day. That's fine, tick it here. You know, she's only willing to do it 5 times a day. And for some mums, you know, that's all they can manage. And we really praise those mums that actually, you know, any drop of milk is better than none. But, you know, we do encourage for a full milk supply, you know, it's better to get 80, especially if she's got low volumes. But this is your legal documentation here that we've given her the support and we've recommended that she does it 8 times. The other thing that I just need you to do is just on the back as well. I don't need you to repeat everything that's on this form. It's if you've made any changes. You've given a bigger funnel size, or you've recommended that she does it 8 times a day, whatever the recommendation is, or the problem that you've given, or it might just be as simple as taught how to hand express correctly, taught how to use the pump correctly, gone through it all. Tick and sign it. So a lot of people tick the boxes here but forget to sign it on the back, so that's really important. The other thing when you taught a mum about hand expressing as well is that you need to fill in this yellow orange sheet, Family Matters checklist, and on the box here you need to document feeding methods for mum. It might be bottle feeding but willing to express EBM. It might be mixed feeding, whatever the feeding method is, so that actually that helps us further down the line to know actually where we're going. And if you're taught hand expressing, you've taught how to use a pump, then do sign it on there as well. Okay, thank you.